Hello and welcome to another episode of the Classical Republican. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Spanish Civil War, and I have a slideshow for you right here. And we're going to start with the background. So there was a first Spanish Republic, which got started in 1873. It ended in 1874, so it wasn't a very good run for republicanism there. Monarchy continued in 1923. You had a coup d'état, General Primo de Rivera. He was a modernizing reformer, but he didn't do enough for anybody. And of course, any reform also makes people mad. So he made everybody mad. And in 1931, he had to leave. There were uprisings, and that is the beginning of the Second Spanish Republic. Now, at this time, there was a strong culture war, shockingly similar to what we have today in the United States. So you have left wing and right wing, conservative, and maybe a better word would be reformist. And well, anyway, they have elections, and you have a there's Primo de Rivera. You have reformers. Oh, here's the flag. Got the flag there. That's the flag. One of the few flags to have purple in it. Not the most popular color for national flags, but the Second Spanish Republic had purple in it during the 30s. So here is the man who becomes prime minister, Azaña. And he is really the leader of the left, the leader of the Republic for most of the 30s, and even goes into exile after the Republic is vanquished from Spain. So in November of 1931, this Republican Socialist coalition falls apart. Okay, so Azaña was very successful with at the beginning, and then it just comes apart at the next election. Now, in the next election in November 1931. You have extremist parties who win on both sides, and that's why you don't have the Republicans and the Socialist coalition. And the right-wing SEDA becomes the governing party, but they don't really have a strong majority. So you have, in 1932, you have Sanjurjo, a general who attempts a right-wing coup, but then that pushes public opinion to the left. So Azaña is ascendant after that time, but yeah, it's just the Republic is muddling through. The left is trying to introduce agrarian reforms to give land to the poor, so they can work that land that they're already working, but attain the value from their labor. And this continues until 1936 with a military uprising again from this man, General Sanjurjo. He is the leader. Of course, he was the leader in 1933, but he learned his lesson from his 1933 failure. 1932 failure. And in 1936, the military uprising is successful. But eventually, General Franco, because some people are captured or killed, and so he's the one left standing on the nationalist side. So on the nationalist side, you have phalangists, monarchists, and wealthy people who are just don't want anything to do with the reforms, and so they support Franco and the rebel uprising. Supporting the government, you have the Republicans, you have the socialists, communists, anarchists. You have Catalonia, which is in the northeast, and then you have the Basques, who are, I guess you could say, the north. Well, up north, I guess you would be the best description. I have a map here I'll show in a second. But they, yeah, so but there are some Basques who do support the nationalists because they're conservative. And but the reason Catalonia and the Basques are supporting the United Front, as it becomes named, is because they want greater autonomy, possibly independence. So they have so a lot of them side with the United Front, and that's what they've been. That's what the United Front was, or the whole left, the parties that make up the United Front were working towards throughout the 30s, was agrarian reform and more local autonomy. So the nationalists controlled this area in the pink, and there aren't a lot of, well, they got Seville, Cadiz, Leon, a few large cities, but mostly what they have is the wheat growing regions. So they always have bread and meat and the stuff that's needed for food production. But the Republicans, they ruled the industrial areas. So we see Madrid, Valencia is a great port, Barcelona is a great port. Now this is the area. This area is Catalonia, and Barcelona is the capital region. And so that was actually controlled by anarchists. So Catalonia became an anarchist area. I don't want to call it a state. It's not a state. An area that was controlled by anarchists, and they were actually very successful. One of the most successful anarchist examples of anarchism being successful in history. Now, we had all these different factions. We had more factions on the Republican side. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of disagreements. There's a question of whether these factions should carry on the anti-fascist war against Franco, or if they should carry on a social revolution. And so you have the PUN, which is a Trotskyist, mainly a Trotskyist organization, and a Marxist organization, and they also the anarchists in Catalonia believe that the answer to that question is that you should be fighting for the revolution to reform society. But everybody else, the Republicans, the socialists, and the especially the Soviet-backed communists were, well, Stalinist-backed communists were for fighting the anti-fascist war now and promoting a revolution later. And so there was infighting, and that didn't help. But what really didn't help was that nobody except the USSR, who really had a hard time getting supplies to Spain, and Mexico, because they didn't have a lot to give. They were the only ones helping the United Front. On the nationalist side, you had Germany and Italy who were helping out, and they contributed, not only weapons, but really good weapons, because they wanted to test out their weapons in the battlefield. So they also sent personnel. So a lot of soldiers went from Italy and Germany, and you did have international brigades on the Republic side, and they fought, but there were probably there were several thousand on the Republican side. There were several more thousand. There were tens of thousands of soldiers from Italy and Germany. So the war carries on. So this here on this slide, I have October 1937. And this is how it looked for a lot of the war. And then slowly the nationalists took, they went into Catalonia, took Catalonia first, and they nearly surrounded Madrid, and finally went into Madrid and chased what was left of the Republican Spain all the way to Valencia. And who did get away fled. Most of those people fled to France. Before I get to the end, what helped put the nails in the coffin was in 1938, when the British Prime Minister Chamberlain was so busy appeasing Hitler on Czechoslovakia. This had a really big impact on Spain, because that meant that Hitler could do whatever he wanted, he won't be opposed, and he would continue to aid Franco. So that wasn't good. And everybody saw this as the death knell of the Spanish Republic. In April 1939, the Republican government went into exile in France. Many people went into France, and the next year they found themselves in concentration camps of the Third Reich. So this is my presentation on the Spanish Civil War. I also have some videos on some books that I read about the Spanish Civil War, and I hope you appreciate this. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can do that. Look for me, Classical Republican, and please like, subscribe, share, comment, and interact with me on with this video. So I hope you appreciate this, and this gives you some knowledge on the Spanish Civil War and republicanism rising and falling at that time. Long live the Republic.